Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. So in this video, we will be presenting about Newton's law, inclined plane without friction. This is our team members, Muhammad Danish bin Zahrulai and Muhammad Shahmi Naim bin Muhammad Sham. We are from RCDCS 1434B.
So, moving on to the next slide, Newton's law.
What is Newton's law? The motion of an item is related to the forces operating upon it by Newton's law of motion. So according to the first law, unless a force acts upon an item, it will not modify its velocity. According to the second law, an object force is determined by multiplying its mass by its acceleration. And then according to the third law, forces of equal magnitude and opposite direction are applied to each other when two objects interact. So we have three types of law: Newton's first law, the law of inertia; Newton's second law, F equals to ma; and Newton's third law, the law of action and reaction.
Now, let's start with Newton's first law. It is defined as an item won't change its state of motion unless an imbalanced force acts upon it. Until an imbalance acts upon an object in motion, it will continue to move in the same direction and at the same pace. It implies that the things should continue doing what they are doing. If you are still not clear about it, let's look at the diagram given.
Next, the Newton's second law.
When a force acts on a body or mass, acceleration is produced. The acceleration is proportional to the force. So the greater the mass, the more force is required to accelerate the object. Therefore, heavy objects require more force to move the same distance as lighter objects.
Now, let's move to Newton's third law. It is stated as action and reaction are equal and opposite. Every force, there is a reaction force that is equal in size but opposite in direction. That is to say that whenever an object pushes another object, it gets pushed back in the opposite direction equally hard. Let's look at the diagram given. A force exists when the man pushes on a wall, and the second force exists as the wall pushes back. With Newton's law, now let's talk about inclined plane without friction. Before we go far to the details, let's look at the diagram given. It is a situation of how inclined plane works. It works when an object sliding down a slide. So now, what is inclined plane without friction? Inclined plane without friction defined as the only force operating on the item along the incline in the absence of friction is Fg. The object accelerates down the incline due to this force, and Newton's second law can be used to compute the acceleration. In this instance, the object's acceleration depends only on the angle of the slope and the acceleration caused by gravity. It is independent of the object's mass.
Moving on to the example for inclined plane without friction, a block of mass 20 kg held by a cord in a frictionless inclined plane as shown in the figure below. What is the tension in the cord? What force does the plane exert on the block? So as we can see on the table below, we have the weight force, we also have the normal force which is R, and also the pulling force which is T, and 30 degree. So since the system at rest, the sum of F is equal to 0. So sum of Fx is equal to 0, and then the pulling force which is T minus by mg sin theta is equal to 0. So T equal to mg sin theta, and then you just insert the value, and then we will get 98.1 Newton. So for y, summation F y equal to 0, and then the R, which is the normal force, minus mg cos theta is equal to 0, and then r is equal to mg cos theta, and then you just insert the value and we will get 170 Newton for summation of Fy. As we can see on the table below, inclined plane without friction is going to have two forces, which is the normal force and also the gravity force. The gravity force is also known as the weight of the object. So for objects on inclined plane without friction, the F perpendicular or perpendicular force is equal to the normal force, and then the F parallel is equal to the net force. If there is no friction, then the acceleration of an object moving up and down an inclined plane is entirely caused by the force of gravity. That means you can calculate the acceleration of an object only using the acceleration of the gravity, which is equal to the 9.8 ms².
Let's move to the discussion. We will be discussing about a problem that we might face in our real life, contain inclined plane without friction. Before that, let's look at the scenario that we might face in our real life.
This is so heavy, Naim.
Yeah, it is so heavy.
A few inches later.
Danny, how can we lift this up?
Okay, I have an idea. We can use this slide.
This is what we call as inclined plane. So, from the video, we can notice the use of forces and we can calculate them. In order to calculate the force, we need to first label the picture.
So for the step 1, we label the angle, and then for the step 2, we label the weight force.
Step 3, we label the reaction force, and lastly step 4, we label the tensional force.
Alright, so we move on to discussion. So first step is to draw a diagram based on the situation that we are facing. So in this case, we all know that the mass of the object is 20 kg and also the angle is 30 degree.
Since the situation is at rest, so the sum of force is equal to 0. First, we need to find the T tensional force. So, T minus mg sin theta equal to 0. We change the position. So, T equal mg sin theta. We put the value into the formula. So, 20 times 9.8 times sin 30, we got 98 Newton. Next, to find reaction force, the formula is R minus mg cos theta equal to 0. So we change the position. So we change the position and we put the value. We got R equal 20 times 9.8 times cos 30. So we got the reaction force is 169.74 Newton.
So we are at the conclusion already. So in physics, a tilted surface is referred to as an inclined plane. A force that is not uniform causes objects to accelerate down inclined planes. The components of force parallel to the incline increases in proportion to the angle of inclination. As the angle increases, the portion of forces acting on an item on an inclined plane decreases. So any process that causes a moving object's speed to change is referred to as acceleration.